Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss the current affairs of 13th January 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see the first article. Title says in his first speech at UNSC, that is United Nations Security Council, Jaishankar slams China and Pakistan. So this article mainly talking about United Nations Security Council. So this article will be important regarding international relations which comes under GS paper 2. So regarding this UNSC, it will be important from both the prelims and also mains. Now let us see the context why it is in the news and as well as some important details which are highlighted in this article and also some facts regarding this United Nations Security Council. So if you see the context, it mainly says that in the first speech in the United Nations Security Council, because India elected for the 8th time as a non-permanent member for this United Nations Security Council. So in this first meet, our External Affairs Minister made an indirect references regarding the China and the Pakistan, mainly for the delaying of the process of designating the terrorist individuals and their entities here. So as well as China and the Pakistan, they are also failing to stop the funding of the terror. So this is the context. And if you see some important things regarding this UNSC, so this United Nations Security Council, it is one of the important organs of United Nations. So mainly this United Nations Security Council, it is charged with the maintenance of international peace and as well as security. So the important function of this United Nations Security Council here, it is to maintain the international peace and the security. So if you see the powers which are conferred with this United Nations Security Council, they include, the first one is it should establish the peacekeeping operations and also establishment of the international sanctions, authorization of military action to the Security Council resolutions. So these are the 3 important functions which are conferred with this United Nations Security Council. So if you see the members, they are normally 15 members. So out of these 15 members, they can be divided into 2 groups. The first group, they include the permanent members. They are the powerful countries. That is a P5 countries. And the next one is the non-permanent members. They are 10 in number. So those powerful 5 countries include Russia, UK, France, China and US. And they mainly contains the veto power. That means if at all any reform they want to make, if any country which is not accepted, then that will be null and void. So this is the veto power they will enjoy. And if you see regarding this non-permanent members, their tenure it is for 2 years. India mainly demanding for the reforms in this UNSC and India mainly demanding for the permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. So there are some reasons which are mainly supporting for the India's move here. The first one is India was among the founding members of United Nations and India it is the second largest constant contributor of the troops mainly for the United Nations peacekeeping operations, and India also been a member of the United Nations Security Council for the 7 times and now it elected for the 8th time as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. So because of these reasons, mainly India won the permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council. So regarding this United Nations Security Council, you will come across 2 important terms. The first one is G4 bloc or the G4 countries. They are the countries mainly demanding for the permanent membership and they are mainly demanding the need of reforms in this United Nations Security Council. Those G4 countries include Germany, Japan, Brazil and India. And the next one is Coffee Club. So Coffee Club, they are the group of countries mainly opposing this G4 bloc. They include Italy, South Korea, Spain, Argentina, Pakistan, Canada and Mexico. So these are some important facts that you should remember regarding this article. Now let us see the next article. So before seeing this article, let me make a small announcement. We launched this current affairs package course. So this course will be very important to clear prelims and as well as mains. So if you are starting your preparation, whether you started your preparation along with the answer writing or not, So if you are focusing on the answer writing also, whenever you started your preparation, then your chances of clearing the UPSC will be very, very high, because answer writing skills are very, very important for clearing of this UPSC. So if you see, regarding this prelims, you need to qualify this. But regarding the mains, you need to get the higher marks, mainly to make your name in the list. Mainly to get the higher marks in the mains, you need to focus on the answer writing. So this current affairs package will be especially focusing on the current affairs and also mains answer writing practice. So if you see, about 50 to 60% of your paper, that is from the newspaper itself. So if you see the recent GS1, GS2, GS3, then you can understand what is a contribution of the current affairs in the mains. So this package will be very, very useful to clear UPSC. So if you are interested, please join this current affairs package course. This is a highly economical and also highly beneficial to the students who are preparing for UPSC. So the details of this course which is given in the description box below. So please visit that. And now let us see the next article. Title says, ahead of Gavli's visit, Nepal, India differ on conducting border talks. So this article again talking about international relations regarding India-Nepal relations. So why this India-Nepal relation, it is in the news. So now let us see the context and some details as well as some facts regarding the India-Nepal relation. So Foreign Minister of Nepal, he is to attend this joint commission meeting that is going to be held. So because of this India-Nepal relation which is in the news, and in this meeting what they are going to talk, what are the important topics they will going to discuss. So this article mainly says that they are going to discuss on the broad spectrum development projects between the India and Nepal. And regarding the boundary between the India and Nepal, there are the two regions of dispute. The first one is Kalapani region, next one is Susta region. Kalapani region which is mainly present in the state of Uttarakhand and Susta region which is present in the state of Bihar. So why there is a boundary dispute? Because there is a treaty, that is a Treaty of Sugali of 1816, mainly talks that the boundary between the India and the Nepal, that will be the river Kali. So whenever we are having these natural boundaries, especially the rivers, there will be the difference in the flow. Okay, they may change their flow. So because of this changing of the flow of the river, then what happened? Some region that will go in the another territory, or some region that will be lost by another territory. So because of this changing the course of this river, that led to these disputed boundaries between the India and the Nepal, especially regarding this Kalapani area and the Susta. In the Susta area, that is the river Gandak, that changed the course, and regarding the Kalapani, that is river Kali, that changed the course. So this is about the boundary issue, and this article mainly says that regarding this boundary issue, they are not going to talk in this meeting. So there is these issues that is this boundary issues that will be handled separately by the India and the Nepal. And they are going to talk about the vaccine, because in India 2 vaccine candidates, they got the emergency use authorization mainly from the DGCI. So they may talk about the supply of these vaccines to the Nepal as well. And the next one is Nepal also expected to raise the need to discuss and also to adapt the eminent persons group. So this eminent persons group mainly constituted by our Prime Minister and as well as the Prime Minister of Nepal in the year 2016. So this eminent persons group mainly that will helpful in taking some measures regarding the Nepal's land boundary dispute and also the revision of the historical ties between the India and Nepal. So these are some important things which are discussed in this article. Now let us see what is important regarding UPSC point of view. The first one is why Nepal, which is important to the India. So if you see the boundary countries that share the boundary with the India, so one important country here is Nepal, right? So Nepal shares the boundary with the 5 states of India. They include Uttarakhand, UP, West Bengal, Sikkim and Bihar. So because of the boundary sharing between the India and the Nepal, then what happened? There are also some cultural and the economic exchange that will happen between these 2 countries. The second one is this Nepal, it is also strategically important for the national security of the India and also to maintain international politics with the country. And if you see the Nepal mainly located in the middle of India's Himalayan frontiers. So this northern, it mainly forms a northern borderland to the India. So in this way, if you see the exact location that is present here, right, in the Himalayan region. So in this area, it is mainly acting as a buffer between the China and the India here. So here mainly if there is any aggression which is showed by the China on the India, so it will mainly act as a buffer state against the possible aggression which is showed by the China. And the next one is many Hindu and the Buddhist religious sites are present. So those Buddhist and the Hindu site, they are some of the pilgrimage sites for the Indians. And the next one is most of the rivers that are coming from this Nepal, they act as a perennial rivers of the India. So because of this, we need the Nepal. And the next one is areas of cooperation. The first area here is state and economy. So Nepal, it is the largest trade partner of India. And if you are talking about the connectivity, this Nepal which is surrounded by the India on the three sides, and it does not have the sea route. That means it is a landlocked country. So because of this, there are many programs which are enhanced by the India to increase the connectivity, and also it will helps to enhance the people to people linkages such that it will finally promote the growth and the development in the region. And we came up with the electric rail track that is from the Kathmandu with the Rasol which is present in the India. And we are also focusing on the inland waterways as well. And we are also providing some development assistance to the Nepal in the fields like health, education, etc. And when we are talking about the defense cooperation, we are mainly helping the Nepal for the modernization of their army. We are providing the equipment and also training. And we are also having these Gorkha regiments of Indian Army. Okay. And the next one is the joint military exercise between the India and the Nepal, that is Surya Kiran. So this will be important for prelims. And if you are talking about the cultural relationship, so we have the three sister city agreements mainly between the India and the Nepal. The first one is Kathmandu Varanasi, second one is Lumbini Bodh Gaya, and the third one is Janakpur Ayodhya. So in this way, we have the three sister city agreements that are signed between the India and Nepal. And we are also providing the humanitarian assistance mainly to the Nepal whenever it is affecting with the earthquakes or floods, etc. And also Nepal and India, they are the members of multilateral partnership like BBIN, that is Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, BIMSTEC, Non-Alignment Movement, and also SAARC. So these are the some important areas of cooperation between the India and the Nepal. That will be very, very important for mains. And now let us see the next article. Title says US rebrands Cuba as state sponsor of terrorism. So in yesterday's lecture, we studied about the Cuba's currency reforms, correct? So Cuba, it is coming for the devaluation of one currency and the withdrawal of the second currency. So earlier in the Cuba, there is a dual currency system that is present, but now it is coming with the only one currency system. So one of the important reason here is because of the economic sanctions which are imposed by the USA on Cuba. Okay, so there is a link between the yesterday's articles and the today's article here. So because of that, I am discussing what we discussed in the yesterday. Now let us try to understand the context and also some details which are given in this article, and why the sanctions which are imposed by the USA and the Cuba we will go to understand in this article. Context here is outgoing administration of USA, that is Donald Trump administration, that returned Cuba to the US blacklist of state-sponsored terrorism here. So again Cuba, which is placed under the list, that is a blacklist of the state sponsors of terrorism. So because of this, again listed under that list, so there is some impact on the Cuba that is seen. It will hamper or it will decrease the foreign investment into the Cuba. So if you see the history, it is not for the first time Cuba which is listed under this blacklist of state sponsors of terrorism. But in the 2015, whenever the Obama came into the power, so during the Obama's time, he mainly delisted the Cuba from this list, mainly to normalize the relationship between the India and the Cuba. So why the reasons? What are the reasons why the Trump administration again listed Cuba as the state sponsor of terrorism? The first one is Cuba have some ties with the Colombian rebels, and also Cuba is also having some allegations with some alliance with the leftist Venezuela, and it is also acting as a sanctuary to the several US visitors. That means economic offenders of the USA, they are coming to the Cuba for residing. So because of these three reasons, that is justifying the blacklisting of this Cuba. Okay. So if you see here, US also made a statement that why it is blacklisting, because it want to support the Cuban people for their desire for their democratic government, and also US will respect the human rights, freedom of religion, expression, association. So because of this, USA took this decision of listing again Cuba under this blacklist. So now let us try to understand some facts regarding this. If you see regarding the US blacklist of state sponsoring of terrorism, here United States Secretary of State that mainly contains some power to designate the countries that are having repeatedly provided the support for the acts of international terrorism. So whenever any country which is reportedly supporting for the terrorism or the international terrorism or any acts of terrorism, then that country will be listed under this state sponsors of terrorism, and this power which is present with the US Secretary of State. So whenever any country which is listed under this, then country will impose 4 categories of sanctions. The first one is restrictions on US foreign assistance. So if at all any assistance which is providing by the US, that assistance will be restricted or that will be withdrawn. And the next one is ban on defense exports and the sales to that country, and certain controls over the exports of dual use items that will be also imposed. And the next one is miscellaneous financial and also other restrictions that can be imposed. So these are the sanctions. So these are the some important things that you should remember regarding this article. Now let us see the next article. Title says inflation slows to 4.59% to food prices ease. So this article mainly talking about inflation. We discussed number of times in our Hindu analysis regarding the inflation. So once again let us have a discussion because it will be helpful for the revision as well. So most of the students, they read everything but they will forget about the revising everything. So if you see, one important key to clear any exam, that is revision, because human brain have a tendency to forget everything, correct? So whatever you read, you can regain those within 1 day or maximum of 1 week. So within 1 week or within 5 days, if you are not revising those, then your memory of that things will be decreased. Okay, you have the tendency of not remembering those, right? So this article will be very important regarding economy, which comes under GS paper 3, and this article important regarding prelims point of view. Now let us see some facts regarding the inflation. So the context says that India's retail inflation that decelerated appreciably to 4.59% in the December from 6.93% in the November. So if you are comparing the inflation of November 2020 with the December 2020, there is a decreasing of the trend of inflation. So in November month, we saw there is a 6.93% of inflation, that is more than the target. The target here is we need to maintain between the 2 to 6%, that is 4 plus or minus 2%. But in the November, we saw there is a 6.93, that is above the target. But in the month of December, we saw there is a 4.59%, that is within the target now. So what might be the reasons? The reasons here is the first one is decrease in the food prices, and the vegetable prices or fall in the month of December. So because of this inflation that is decreased in the market. So what is the inflation? Inflation means the general tendency of increasing the price of goods and services in the market. So for example, we can say daily used goods or the common goods like food, clothing, housing, recreation, transport, consumer staples. Whenever these prices of these goods and services which are increased in the market, they are called as inflation. But if you see here, we can see one important term, that is deflation. So this deflation which is exactly opposite to the inflation, that means a fall of prices of goods and services in the market, that is called as a deflation. And who will measure this inflation? Inflation will be measured by the CSO, which comes under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And if you see the indices, there are 2 indices. The first one is wholesale price index. Next one is a consumer price index. So first, let us see what are the causes for this inflation. So the first and the foremost we can talk about here is demand and supply gap. That means there is a increase in the demand in the market, but there is a decrease in the supply of that good in the market. For example, there are 10 breads are present in the market, but for these 10 breads, there are 100 people who stand in the queue. So these 100 people, they want this 10 breads. Okay, so whenever there is a demand is high in the market, but the supply of the breads which is low in the market, then what happens? The seller of this breads, they may sell the one bread instead of rupees 10, he may sell one bread for rupees 100. So whoever paying the rupees 100, for that only he can give that bread. So artificially this seller of this bread, they can increase the price such that it will lead to the inflation in the market. And the second one is whenever there is excess circulation of money. If you are talking, there are 100 breads are present in the market, and for these 100 breads, there are 100 people who stood in the line or in the queue. But what happened among these 100 people? There are only 100 breads are present, but for the demand here is 100, and also there is a supply of the breads here is 100. But out of this 100 people, for example, if some people they want the 2 breads, then what will happen? So these people who want the 2 breads, they can give the extra money, like we will pay 100 rupees for one bread, please give me 2 breads, because there are increase in the money circulation, that is in the market there is an increase in the money. So because of the high liquidity in the market, these people who are going to buy, they can increase the price here. So in the first condition, the seller of that bread is increasing the price. So in the second thing here, the buyer of that bread here is increasing the price because of the excessive liquidity in the market. And the next one is increase in the, if there is any increase in the raw material cost, or increase in the labor cost, or increase in the transport, or if there is any crude oil crisis that happen. So because of all these reasons, that will lead to the inflation in the market. So these are some important things that you should remember. And now let us see the next article. Title says, in ancient Al-Ula, foraging a new future. So this article mainly talking about Al-Ula Accord. So in yesterday's lecture, we studied about the foreign policy of India. So how we gonna reshape our foreign policy. So in this lecture, we are going to see another international relations topic. So this will be very interesting, and this is mainly talking about the developments and the dynamics in the West Asia. So to understand this topic, so please concentrate here, and today's main question is also based on this topic. If you see this Al-Ula, where is this place located first? So this place will be important for prelims. So in prelims, you may get a question like Al-Ula, which is recently seen in the news. So where is this place located? And they may give the option A, option B, option C and option D and ask you to choose the correct answer. So this Al-Ula mainly located in the Saudi Arabia. So why this is in the news? Because recently Gulf Cooperation Council meeting that held in this Al-Ula. So this Gulf Cooperation meeting which is held in this mainly to end the dispute or the bitter discord mainly between the 3 countries, that is Saudi Arabia, UAE and Bahrain, along with the Egypt and the Qatar. Egypt and the Qatar, it is on one side, and Saudi, UAE and the Bahrain, they are on the second side. So it is a settlement between these 2 groups here. So now let us try to understand what is the dispute between the Saudi Arabia and the Qatar first. So on June 5th, 2017, Arab Quartet, that is, this is the group mainly led by the Saudi Arabia, which boycotted the Qatar mainly through the diplomatic boycott, that we can say the boycott on the land, sea and also air embargo here. Mainly the important aim of this Arab Quartet here is to isolate the Qatar. So because here the Qatar which is mainly moving towards the Turkey and Iran. So whenever it is moving towards the Turkey and Iran, whatever the principles it is following by the Qatar, they are against the monarchy. So because of this, they want to isolate the Qatar. So because of this, they came up with the boycotting of the Qatar. So in this boycotting, they mainly demanded 13 demands on the Qatar. So some of the important one here is, the first one is to cut or to sever the ties with the Muslim Brotherhood. So that is from the Egypt. Mainly to cut from the Egypt regarding this Muslim Brotherhood. Next one is to dilute the relation with the Qatar, with the Turkey and the Iran. And the next one is to shut down the Al Jazeera network. So Al Jazeera, it is an independent television network in the Qatar. So this Al Jazeera network mainly talks about the spreading of the democratic principles, democratic values, etc. But these democratic principles, they are against the monarchy. So if you see, most of these West Asian countries, they are ruled by the kings till now. So there is a monarchy that is present. So whatever the monarchy that is present, if at all they are spreading the democratic values, the people mainly influenced by them, and they will ask this government, that is the king, mainly to go for the democracy, that is elections. So this will be against this monarchy, right? So because of this, they mainly made these 13 demands that to be accepted by the Qatar. So in return, Qatar mainly understand that whenever it is accepting those demands, that will be the encroachment on its sovereignty. So because of this thing, Qatar rejected these demands. If you see the background or the history regarding these democratic principles that were spread. So 10 years back, what happened? Arab Spring mainly started. So Arab Spring mainly started in Tunisia, and it spread to the other countries. Finally, it came to the West Asia. So this Arab Spring mainly talks about the ending of the monarchy, and they want to move towards the democracy. That means elected representatives. So this is about the simply Arab Spring. Arab Spring means the end of the monarchy. Mainly the people demands for the end of the monarchy, and they want their democracy, to establish the democracy in the country. So what happened in the Egypt? In the Egypt also Arab Spring that came. So the mainly people demanded for the democracy, and finally the democracy that established in the Egypt with the Morsi here. Okay. So what happened whenever the Egypt also came up with the elections? So whenever it is also establishing the democracy, Saudi Arabia mainly have some concerns here. So whenever it is coming towards Saudi Arabia, then what happened? People may also demand for the democracy in the Saudi Arabia. So whenever the people are demanding for the democracy, Saudi Arabia mainly, it is feared about the end of the monarchy here. So because of this, Saudi Arabia mainly supported the military coup in the Egypt, mainly to not to establish the democracy in the Egypt in the year 2013. But there are some new developments which happened mainly in the Tunisia and the Egypt. In the Egypt especially, Muslim Brotherhood affiliated parties, they came into the power in spite of the military coup that happened in the year 2013. And also, in this context, Saudi Arabia mainly want to divert the people away from this Arab Spring, because mainly it will be end the monarchy which is present in the Saudi Arabia. So because of this, mainly it is highlighting the threat from the Iran to the people, mainly to divert the demand of the democracy in the country. So if you see in the Egypt and the Tunisia, there is a grassroots mobilization and also the political platform that led into the picture. And we saw there is a Western style of democracy that came into establishment in the Egypt. So whenever there is a Western style of democracy that came into the picture in the Egypt, it will also pose some serious challenges, serious threats to the monarchy in the Saudi Arabia. So because of this, the fear which is outlined in the mainly the Western Asian countries, because these Western Asian countries, they are mainly ruled by the kings here. So because of this Saudi Arabia, which is mainly totally against the Egypt and the Tunisia here. Now, if you see the Qatar, it is one of the member of the GCC, that is Gulf Cooperation Council country, and this Qatar mainly supporting the independent TV channel, that is Al Jazeera. So this Al Jazeera TV channel mainly spreading the democratic value system, and it is also one of the major supporter of the Brotherhood. So it is also expressed its what happened whenever Qatar mainly said that you need to suspend this Al Jazeera. So this Al Jazeera mainly the channel which is mainly spreading the Brotherhood and also the democratic value system. So Al Jazeera mainly one of the important independent TV channel that is present in the Qatar. But mainly Saudi Arabia want to suspend this channel. But Qatar didn't accept this, and in return Qatar mainly said that whenever we are accepting the demands which are made by this Saudi Arabia, so it will affect the sovereignty of the Qatar, and it said that it is our independent foreign policy. Whatever we want, we will move towards either Turkey or Iran, but please don't interfere in our foreign policy. So this is a statement which is given by the Turkey here. So in this context, US also come into the picture. In the US, Donald Trump who came into the power. So whenever Donald Trump came into the power, he mainly imposed some sanctions on the Iran. So there is some distrust that is happening between the USA and the Iran, and there is also the gap which is started widening between the USA and Iran. And on the second way, Here Donald Trump mainly supporting the Saudi Arabia because there are some many investments, and this Saudi Arabia will be helpful for the USA regarding the economy, military, so and so. So because of this, what happened here, USA mainly supported the Saudi Arabia to impose the sanctions on this Qatar, because Qatar, which is a member of GCC. So because of this, Qatar, which is a member of GCC, Saudi Arabia can impose the sanctions. So because of this, they came up with the boycott of this Qatar here. But whatever the approach which is taken by the Saudi Arabia, which not affected the Qatar here. So because of some reasons. The first one is, we can say there is a huge resources which are present in the Qatar already. And the next one is, there is no much impact on the financial system because of the imposition of the boycott. Okay. And the next one is, this Qatar mainly backed by the Turkey and as well as Iran here. And the other two GCC partners, they include Kuwait and the Oman. They mainly ensure there is a movement of the goods and also the people between the Qatar, Kuwait and Oman. So because of this, the approach which is came up by the Saudi Arabia, which is not effective on this Qatar. So because of this, now UAE, Bahrain also normalized their relations, and they also came up with the Abraham Accord. So if you're talking about the changing of the dynamics, in USA Trump administration, which is ended now, and the new thing, that is a Joe Biden, who is also came into the power. So this Joe Biden mainly inclined towards the Iran. So because of this, now they came up with the Al-Ula Accord here. So this Al-Ula Accord mainly to decrease the tensions between these two groups here, because now if you see across the country, they are mainly talking about we need to move towards the renewable energy sources, and we need to decrease the dependency on the non-renewable energy, correct? So what happened, if you see this West Asia, the economy of these West Asian countries mainly dependent on the oil resource, right? So they mainly export the oil, that is a crude oil, to the other countries. So whatever the amount which is paid in return, that will be the forming the economy of that country. But now every country which is mainly moving towards the non-renewable resources. In the day before yesterday's lecture, we studied about the lithium reserves or the lithium triangle which are present in the Latin America. So because of this lithium reserves which are present here, and we are also talking about the domestic industry of lithium ion batteries. So because of this, we can also reduce our dependency on the West Asia. So whenever the other countries who are moving towards the electricity, or when they are moving about the non-renewable resources, so there will be the dependency that will be decreased on this West Asia now. So because of this, they need to go for the economy diversification. They should not solely depend on this oil supplies. So they need to go for the renewable energy or electric vehicles, etc. So in this way, whenever there are some disputes between these GCC countries, that will not help for the growth and the development in the region. So because of this, they want to come down and they want to resolve these tensions in the GCC countries. So this is about the Al-Ula Accord. I hope it is very clear now. Now let us see the next article. Title says Reclaiming SAARC from Ashes of 2020. So this article again talking about SAARC, which is also one of the regional grouping. So this article again important regarding international relations, which comes under GS paper 2. So this SAARC topic, it is important regarding mains point of view. Now let us see what is the context and what is this article mainly talking about. So this SAARC mainly stands for South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. So it is an 8-member organization here. So now in the 2020, this SAARC become a non-relevant here. So because of the some of the conflict between the members of the SAARC, it is not relevant today. Because of these issues which are happening between the one country and the another country, they are going for the fragmented approach but not as a unit together. That means if you see the SAARC, there are 8 members which are present. But these countries, they are going for the individual diplomatic relationship with each other countries rather than as a whole unit. So this type of approach, it is called as a fragmented approach. So whenever we are going for the fragmented approach, so what is the importance of that organization then? So because of this, this organization will become irrelevant. So this is some of the gist. Now let us see the background. Here from past 6 years, these SAARC countries do not met. So the one important reason here is India-Pakistan issue. India and the Pakistan, they have the several issues regarding the terrorism, territorial claim, etc. So because of this, what happened, this India-Pakistan issue will be mainly advantageous to the China here. here China and Pakistan, they are the all-weather friends. So because of those two weather friends, China mainly influencing the Pakistan and making this organization irrelevant here. So why China which is influencing the Pakistan? That means if there is any group, there are 8 countries which are present as a group. If at all any country which came up with anything or any reform in this SAR, in this SARC, then what happen if at all any other country which is rejecting is, then that policy will not going to be implemented. So that will lead to the policy paralysis. So whenever there is a policy paralysis, then the relevance of that organization will be not relevant. Okay, the relevance will be decreased. So in this way, China, which is mainly using the Pakistan to make this SARC organization a relevant body now. Okay, and if you see what is the way forward, the first one is we need to talk about the issues regarding the India-Pakistan, not in this SARC, but there are some other organization in which India and the Pakistan both are the friends, both are the members. They include SCO, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So in this SCO, there is also one thing, that is RATS, which mainly talks about the anti-terrorism. So in that platform, we can talk about the issues regarding the India-Pakistan, that is especially related to the terrorism. And the next one is China's incursion in the Ladakh and the Galwan Valley, that is present now. So because of this, there is a larger concern of India. So these concerns that can be talked in the RIC meet, that is Russia, India, China meeting, and also SCO, G20, etc. And if you see, there are many organizations, they are mainly going for the virtual summit now. So because of this COVID-19 pandemic, so we can also go for the virtual meeting. So if you are talking about the South Asia, these countries are mainly facing the challenges regarding the tourism. So this tourism which has affected the economy of the country, right? So we need to go for the one regional thing like East Africa single joint visa system, that is mainly present in the Mekong region. So we can also come up with such types of incentives, mainly initiatives in the South Asia as well. So this is the one of the visa regime relaxation that can be come up by these 8 countries, such that we can make our economy which is based on the tourism now. And the next one is globalization. Globalization means we are going for the integration of the one country's economy with the other country's economy. That means Indian economy which is integrated with the China's economy, China's economy which is integrated with the Vietnam, USA, so and so. So whatever the economies which are present in the world, so there is a connected thing. So that is called as a globalization. But because of the pandemic, we closed our international borders, we shut down the international borders, we are not allowing the imports and the export from the countries where there is a high number of the cases of the COVID-19. So because of this, we went through the globalization. Instead of globalization, we went for the globalization. So in this context, we need to go in a medium path. That means we need not to go to the extreme globalization or extreme globalization. We need to go in a medium path here. So whenever we need to go in this medium path, we can use these regional groupings. These regional groupings, they can be used to maintain the economic demand and the relevancy in the market, such that we can tackle the issues in a coordinated effect. So in this context, author mainly gave one example here, that is Goldilocks option. Goldilocks option means that is not too hot, not too cold. That is a medium way of globalization and hyper-nationalism. So this is the gist of this article. And now let us see the next article. Title says the debilitating side effect of a flawed vaccine trial. So this article mainly talking about vaccine trial, and one important term you should know here is informed consent. So this article mainly based on this informed consent. So now let us try to understand what is this informed consent. So to understand this informed consent, first we need to see the background. So the background here is, whenever any company which is going for the vaccine trials, that need to give the informed consent. That means we informed everything regarding this trial to so and so person who participated in this clinical trials. In simple, this is the informed consent. So if you see the background regarding this human clinical trial of the human papilloma virus, which is very controversial, because this human trial, that is this human clinical trial, that is a phase 3 clinical trial which conducted without the proper consent in nearly 23,500 girls of age 10 to 14 years, mainly in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So after 8 years, Supreme Court slammed the government for slipping into the deep slumber in addressing the menace of illegal clinical trials. So whenever there is no proper informed consent, so whatever the clinical trial that done by that MNC company, that is called as a flawed thing or illegal clinical trials. And if you see the reason here, informed consent process, that is one of the important cornerstones of ethics in the clinical trials. So without this proper informed consent, so whatever the clinical trials that done will be violated. And this informed consent mainly signed by the hostel wardens or the headmasters of the schools, not by the parents in this. So because of this is a violation of the ethics in the clinical trials. And if you see the present context, when we are talking about this Covaxin, so it is now in the phase 3 clinical trials. So the allegation mainly made here is the participant or the volunteers who are participating in this phase 3 clinical trials, they were ignorant about what they are signing. So on which paper they are signing. So they mainly say that there is no efforts which are made to explain about the what are the pros, what are the cons of this clinical trial, and they were not aware about the right to free medical care if they face any adverse drug reaction or the adverse event, and they were not told about they are getting the vaccine or the placebo, and there is consent which is taken sometimes after the vaccination, so this is against the ethics. And the next one is they are not given any time or the option mainly to discuss with their family members regarding the volunteership in the phase 3 clinical trials. So these are the some issues regarding this Covaxin clinical trials. So in this context, we need to remember this Supreme Court order of 2013. So in this Supreme Court order regarding this clinical trials, it mainly made mandatory that audio video recording of this informed consent process, which is very important, and it should be mandatory, that means it should be compulsory, and also written consent that should be taken before this audio visual recording as well. And now let us try to understand what is this informed consent. Informed consent, it is one of the important process in which healthcare provider mainly educates the patient about what are the risks, what are the benefits, what are the alternatives of the given procedure or the intervention. So after everything which is known to the patient, then the patient will be given some time to make his voluntary decision, that is whether to go to this, whether to not to go to this method. So if you see the elements, there are 8 important elements. They include, the first one is healthcare provider. He will describe about the clinical investigation. So what is the thing, why it is, so what is this clinical trial about, so how the method of the giving of these drugs that will be given, so how many days he should be kept in observation. So everything, the procedure regarding this clinical trials, that to be explained clearly to this volunteer by the healthcare provider. And the next one is he need to give the information regarding what might be the adverse effect. So what to do in that conditions, what are the discomforts that can be faced by the patient. And the next one is what will be the benefits of this study. And the next one is if at all anything which is injury that happened to that patient, so what will be the alternatives or present, that should be the information given. And the next one is confidentiality, which is very important, that to be maintained by the clinical trials. And the next one is completion and the medical treatment in the event of the injury, that compensation. So whenever there is anything which happened to the patient or the volunteer, then what will be the alternative treatment. So for that alternative treatment, the entire burden should be taken by the pharmaceutical company which is conducting the clinical trials. And the next one is they should also give some contact. So in emergency situation, who can they contact. And the next one is this informed consent process should give some time to make the proper decision by the volunteer to make the voluntary participation in these trials. So these are the some important elements of this informed consent. So these are the some important things that you should remember. Okay. Now let us see the main question. So what is Al-Ula Accord? The Arab Quarret's reconciliation with the Qatar could lead to the new regional alignments discussed. So in introduction, you need to write directly about what is this accord, and in the body you need to write about how the changing the dynamics that is happening in the West Asia. So how it will lead to the regional alignments. Okay, so you can talk about the Turkey, Iran and Qatar group, and you can talk about Bahrain, UAE and also Saudi Arabia, and recently they came up with the Abraham Accord. You can also add a note on that Abraham Accord. And you can also about the US Okay, so these are the things you can write in this answer. So answer should not be more than 150 words. Try to write the answer. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. The notes of this class, the link which is given in the description box. Thank you so much.